What happens when a country stops asking for permission? You get pushback, hard pushback. This isn't about trade numbers, it's about power. And right now, America is watching India walk away from the old rules. Trump just threatened 25% tariffs on Indian goods. The reason they're giving you? Trade imbalance. The real reason? India is becoming too independent. And that scares Washington more than they'll admit. Look, most people think this is just another trade war, but dig deeper. This is about control slipping away. For the first time in decades, America is dealing with a country that says thanks, but we'll decide for ourselves. And that changes everything. India isn't just growing fast. It's growing different, not by copying the West, not by playing by American rules, but by building its own game entirely. And that game is working. Here's what nobody talks about. India just became the world's 5th biggest economy. But that's not the story. The story is how they did it, on their terms, with their own systems, using their own playbook. 1 billion people, most under 30, 1 billion smartphones, 900 million internet users by next year. You're watching the biggest connected democracy in history come online, all at once. But there's more. India's GDP is growing at over 7% annually. Compare that to America's 2-3%. China's slowing down to 5%. India is accelerating while others are braking. The demographics tell an even bigger story. India adds 12 million people to its workforce every year. That's like adding a new Australia annually. But unlike other countries with large populations, India's workforce is getting more skilled, not less. Engineering graduates, India produces 1.5 million per year. The US produces 200,000. Software developers, India has over 4 million. That's more than the rest of the world combined. And here's the part that keeps American strategists awake at night. India is doing it without asking America how. Look at digital infrastructure. India built the world's largest biometric database. Aadhaar covers 1.3 billion people. Every citizen has a digital identity from birth to death, tracked, verified, connected. That database powers everything: banking, welfare, taxes, healthcare. It's like Social Security, but for everything. And it works. Fraud is down, efficiency is up, costs are lower. America still argues about digital ID systems. India built one and moved on. Take UPI, India's payment system. It's not just competing with Visa and MasterCard, it's beating them. More transactions, lower costs, built in India, for India, by Indians. The numbers are staggering. UPI processes over 10 billion transactions monthly. That's more than all American payment systems combined. Transaction fees? Nearly zero. Settlement time? Instant. Walmart spent $16 billion to buy into this system through PhonePe. Google invested billions in Google Pay India. Even Facebook tried to get in. Why? Because India built something better than what Silicon Valley created. But it goes deeper. India's Jan Dhan banking program brought 400 million people into the formal economy. People who never had bank accounts suddenly had digital wallets. Farmers selling crops got payments instantly. No middlemen, no delays. That's not just technology, that's social transformation at scale. Or look at space. India's moon mission cost less than a Hollywood movie, and it worked. Their next goal? Sending people to space by 2026. Not with American help, not with Russian rockets, with Indian technology. Here's what makes India's space program different. It's profitable. Private companies can book launches for a fraction of what SpaceX charges. India launched 104 satellites in one mission. SpaceX's record? 143 LEDs, achieved years later. Commercial space launch revenue, India captures 8% of the global market and growing fast. They're not just reaching space, they're making money doing it. This isn't accident, this is strategy. India is building everything it needs. Semiconductors, AI, defense systems, green energy, not by buying from America, by making it themselves. Apple moved production there. Tesla suppliers followed. Google built data centers. Why? Because India isn't just a market anymore. It's an alternative to China. And in a world where supply chains matter, that's huge. So what does America do? What it always does when it can't control something, it pressures. Here's the thing. America got comfortable being the boss. When Washington called, countries answered. When America wanted something, countries delivered. But India, India listens politely, then does what's best for India. That's not defiance, that's independence. And independence from America is something Washington doesn't handle well. Let me break down what's really happening with these tariff threats, because this isn't random. This is calculated pressure designed to bring India back in line. Trump says Indian goods get easy access to American markets, while American goods face high barriers in India. The numbers? Indian tariffs on U.S. farm products average 39%. U.S. tariffs on Indian goods sit around 7%. Sounds unfair, right? Until you understand why. India has 1.4 billion people to feed. Many still farm for a living. You can't just flood their markets with cheap American corn and wheat. That's not protectionism. That's survival. India's government can't let rural communities collapse just to make American farmers happy. But Trump doesn't care about Indian farmers, he cares about American votes. And threatening India plays well with his base. Here's what really triggered this. India kept buying Russian oil during the Ukraine war. Cheap oil. Good for Indian consumers, bad for American pressure campaigns. India also bought Russian defense systems, the S-400 missiles, despite American 3. Odds, despite sanctions warnings, India bought them anyway. Why? Because India doesn't outsource its security decisions to Washington anymore. America wants India as a partner against China. But America also wants India to act like a junior partner, to follow American leads, to choose American sides. India's response will partner with America, but will also partner with Russia, France, Japan, and whoever else serves our interests. That's called strategic autonomy. And it drives American policymakers crazy. Think about it from America's view. For decades, countries had to pick sides, Soviet or American, communist or capitalist. You were in one camp or the other. But India picked itself. And that breaks the old system completely. So Trump goes public with tariff threats, not because India's an enemy, but because India won't be a dependent ally. And for America, that's almost worse. Here's what people miss. India isn't playing the old game anymore. East versus West. America versus China. Those are 20th century rules. India is building something new, a network approach. Work with everyone, depend on no one, and that approach is spreading. Look at the numbers. In 5 years, India signed major deals with America, France, Israel, Britain, and Japan, all while keeping ties with Russia. The Rafale fighter jets from France, not just a purchase, a technology transfer. French engineers trained Indians. Indians learned to build advanced systems. That's partnership, not dependency. With Britain, India signed a 2030 roadmap, cyber defense, AI, clean energy, digital trade, long-term cooperation built on equality, not hierarchy. Israel became India's biggest defense partner, but India didn't just buy Israeli drones, they co-developed them, built manufacturing capacity, created jobs at home. This is the new Indian strategy. Don't just import, co-develop, don't just buy, co-create, build local capacity while building global partnerships. By 2025, over 70% of India's military budget went to domestic production. Indian companies aren't just making for India anymore, they're exporting globally. On trade, India moved fast. Deals with UAE, Australia, South Korea, not just AGR, immense. Supply chain partnerships, energy alliances, digital corridors. India didn't wait for global consensus. It built regional strength, connected with Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, infrastructure projects, education programs, medicine access, not to dominate, to collaborate. This is what Washington sometimes misses. India isn't rejecting the West. It's balancing the world. India still works with America in the Quad Alliance, still invests in U.S. technology, but it also buys Russian oil, uses Israeli defense tech, and signs climate deals with Europe. That's not confusion. That's choice. The freedom to pick what works without asking permission. And honestly, that's what every country should want. Sovereignty without isolation. Partnership without dependence. When Trump pressures India to fall in line, he's really saying America doesn't want India to have choices. America wants India to walk America's path. But that's outdated thinking. This century belongs to countries that can adapt, collaborate, and lead on their own terms. And India is doing exactly that. So is America losing influence? Not entirely. but the monopoly is over. America still has the strongest military, still has deep alliances, still shapes global culture, but when it comes to making other countries do what America wants, that power is fading. Take currency. The dollar still dominates global trade, but more countries are exploring alternatives. India and Russia trade oil in rupees. UAE and India use rupees and dirhams, skipping dollars entirely. That doesn't kill the dollar tomorrow, but it signals something bigger. Countries want options, and options mean independence. Look at BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and others. They're building their own payment systems, their own development banks, their own trade networks. America isn't part of those conversations by design. India hosted the G20 and made its vision clear. The global economy shouldn't center on Western dominance. It should center on shared growth, digital inclusion, and resilience. Here's the difference. America still thinks influence works top-down. You're either with us or against us. But countries like India see it differently. Influence is a network of trust, not a chain of command. India's approach is simple: multi-alignment, trade with America, buy defense from Russia, build solar with UAE, partner with Japan on chips. That's not disloyalty, that's smart policy in a connected world. For America, that's hard to accept. It means American playbooks don't work anymore. A decade ago, America could get what it wanted with phone calls. Today, America has to compete on price, influence, and diplomacy. So is America losing influence? It's not collapsing, but it's no longer the only decision maker. In a world where India rises, Africa asserts, and Latin America reorganizes, American dominance isn't guaranteed. It's negotiated. The real challenge isn't India's strength. It's America's inability to adapt to a world that doesn't wait for instructions. Here's a phrase you hear in Indian policy circles: strategic autonomy. Simple words, powerful idea. Work with everyone, obey no one. For decades, the world was binary: American camp or Soviet camp. But countries like India are changing that equation. They're saying we want to be sovereign, economically, militarily, diplomatically. That's disruptive, not because it's aggressive, but because it's independent. The U.S. wants India fully committed to the Western Bloc, especially with China and Russia tensions rising. But India's answer is clear: we'll work with you, but we decide the terms. This became obvious during the Ukraine war. America expected India to condemn Russia, follow sanctions, cut energy ties. India didn't. Not because India supports war, but because India doesn't outsource foreign policy. India kept buying Russian oil. Energy security for 1.4 billion people came first. India stayed neutral at the UN, choosing diplomacy over division. Look at defense. India does military exercises with the U.S. Navy while conducting drills with Russia and China. That's not mixed messaging. That's non-aligned pragmatism. India understands something key. True independence comes from options, not putting all security eggs in one basket. Here's what makes India unique. It's not trying to be the next superpower in the old sense. Not invading countries, not building foreign bases, not pushing ideology, just building resilience, manufacturing, energy diversity, space tech, financial systems, and diplomacy. This kind of behavior disrupts legacy power structures. America often expects loyalty for partnership. India offers something different: equal partnership. India doesn't want to be told who to trade with, who to sanction, or what side of history to stand on. India chooses its own side, India's side. That's what any responsible nation should do. In a multipolar world, sovereignty is valuable currency, and India is accumulating it fast. When Trump or American officials complain India isn't doing enough, they're really saying India isn't doing what America wants. But that's the point. India doesn't need permission anymore. India needs partners, not handlers. Strategic autonomy isn't isolation. It's intelligent engagement, saying we're in the room, at the table, but on our own terms. That's not defiance. That's modern diplomacy. And India is mastering it. So what happens next? Will Trump's tariff threats work? Will India fold under pressure? Here's what won't happen. India won't panic, won't fold, because this isn't 1975 India. This is 2025 India. Nuclear power, space innovator, largest democracy on earth. The India that once needed foreign aid now sends satellites to the moon. The India that once negotiated from weakness now sets G20 agendas. Tariffs might hurt short term, Indian exporters in textiles, gems, electronics could see impacts, but long-term, this might accelerate India's economic pivot. Indian trade officials are already deepening ties with Africa, EU, Middle East. Bilateral agreements are moving faster. Rupee settlements are expanding. Make in India is becoming